Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. In this video we are gonna to talk about the first part of the mini course of LINQ. At the first part we are gonna to talk about what is a LINQ, why the LINQ exists in the C#, and after that we are gonna to talk about the query syntax and method syntax and what's the difference between query syntax and method syntax. And after that, one of the most important subject in LINQ, IEnumerable, and the difference between IEnumerable and IQueryable. That's so important. If you don't know the difference between these two items, you have to learn it because that's so important and it have so effect on your API and on your program. After that, we have to learn extension method. Extension method is so important because it has a very high impression on the LINQ, and in this video you will learn what is the extension method, and we will create some method that define the extension method. After that, we have to talk about the deferred execution and immediate execution. That's so important to know. Unfortunately, majority of C# developer don't know what's the difference between deferred execution and immediate execution. For example, we have LINQ to entity and LINQ to object. In this video you will learn all of these items, and finally we will create some LINQ query. Let's get started. What is LINQ? Imagine you just load the 20,000 of order from your database and your manager walk in and ask you, hey, give me all of the order that the price is over, for example, 5,000. Give or group by all of the order by city. In situation like this, without LINQ, you will probably end up with loops like for each and for. You will create some conditional statement and some temporary list. That's so awful. But with LINQ, it's just a few readable line of code. Now, what is a LINQ and why did the Microsoft create it? Before we go into what is a LINQ, you have to know the meaning of a query. A query is a simple request for data. For example, give me all of the order. For example, give me all of the user. Group by all of the user by name. That's query. Okay. The LINQ stands for language integrated query. Okay. It means instead of writing different query language for different data source, you are using C# for all of them, for example, SQL, for XML, for collection. That's the power of LINQ. Now, why the LINQ was created in 2007? Why was LINQ was created? Let's go back in 2007. Imagine you want to filter a collection look like this. Here we have a for each and a one if condition. In situation like this, here we want to filter over is paid. If it's paid true, we add this order to this list. Okay, nothing is wrong with this code. But after a few months, this, for example, you want to filter it again. You want to group by. You want to take some special order. After that, your code will become longer and harder to maintain. Microsoft wanted the developer to focus on what they want, not loop through all of the data. Instead of writing a line of code, something like this, you will create this. This is a method syntax with the LINQ. Okay, that's much shorter and much readable. Now it's time to know what is a query syntax and what is a method syntax and what's the difference between these two items. Let's do it. Now, it's time to know what is a query syntax and what is a method syntax. LINQ actually gives us two ways of creating a query based on LINQ. The first one is query syntax, something like this, and the second one is method syntax, this one. Now, here, you know, this is a query syntax. Here is our data source, our condition, our select. But here, all of them actually are the same. But why do we have both of them? Back 2007, millions of developers knows SQL, and for this reason, Microsoft wanted the LINQ feel familiar. But unfortunately, in this modern C# project, all of the LINQ use method syntax. But in a special situation, we can use query. We should use query syntax. For example, we want to join three tables together, and we want to group by based on two variables. In situation like this, if we use method syntax, that's very complicated. But we can use query syntax. But for special situation. Now, in this course, we will go throughout the method syntax because it's shorter, it's readable, and it's very good for our course. Now, let's know what is a IEnumerable. Let's do that. Now, what is IEnumerable? Here, there is a special question. Why does the list have a special method like where? Why not every classes? Because the list implemented a special interface called IEnumerable. And for this reason, every collection that implement IEnumerable interface can be queried with LINQ. For example, stack, array, list, hashed, all of them are enumerable, and that's why LINQ work on all of them. But here is a special question. Every interviewer asks you, hey, what's the difference between IEnumerable and IQueryable? Here I come to the point. For IEnumerable, for example, when you want to use IEnumerable and you want to get all of the user that the age is higher than 20, what happened here? In situation like this, for example, in the user table, you have, for example, you have 5,000 of data. Okay, the IEnumerable bring all of them to the RAM. In RAM now you have 5,000 of record of user data, and here it does a filter, and for example it give us, for example, 20, 30 user of data. But IQueryable has a very basic difference with IEnumerable. It asks the database, hey, do the special filter for me. Hey, give me all of only the user that the age is higher than, for example, 20. It gives us only, for example, 30 record of data, not 5,000. The IQueryable does the filter on the database, and after that bring all of the filtered data to the RAM. And that's the reason IQueryable is faster than IEnumerable. Now, it's time to talk about the extension method. Let's do that. Extension method. Here there is another question. Did the Microsoft actually add the where method to the list class? Did you remember in the previous section I told you, hey, why does the list have a special method where? And here again I'm asking you, did the Microsoft actually add the where method to this class, to the list class? Not really. Where is extension method? What is an extension method? An extension method let us to add an existing method to an existing type without changing the source code. Again, extension method let us to add a method to the existing type without changing the source code. Let me give you an example. Here I come to the section extension method. Suppose I want a variable of type bool. For example, I want to ask, hey, is email, for example, here I have a string variable, for example, something like this, email. And I come here and say, saying ht@gmail.com. This is a string. I come here and say email. Now, is there any method in the string class to check an string that, for example, an @ sign in the string, for example, I say, hey, is, for example, email now. But how can I create an extension method? For creating an extension method, you have to do a special activity. First, you come here and say, hey, you have to create a class. For example, I want to say, for example, check. I want to say check email. But the class you want to define a static method as an extension method should be static. Here I say, hey, the class should be static and the name is check email. Now I want to create an extension method. The method should be the first condition. The class should be static. The second condition, the method should be static to, for example, I say static and it return a boolean, and for example I say check. Let's, for example, I say is email, something like this. Now, in the parameter, did you see it? You have to say, the first item is you have to say this. For extension method, the first item is this. And after that, you have to give, hey, what data type and what, for example, class you want to add this extension method to that. For example, I say, hey, this, and the type that I want to have this method as an extension method is a string. Now, the name is, for example, value. I come here and say, hey, return. For example, the value contains what should here contain at sign. Now, if I come to the program, if I come here and say, hey, is email, did you see what happened? Now it's say, hey, it's an extension method. If I come here and say is email and give the email to that. Now, if I run the program, for example, I say, hey, is email. If I run the program, you will see that. Sorry, what happened? It said email is email. Sorry, it doesn't have. I forgot. Now, if I run the program, it say, hey, true. It's email. I forgot. Okay. Did you say how I create extension method? I told you, extension method let us to add a method to the existing type without changing the source type. Here, I didn't change the string class, the source code of string class. Here, I only create a class and say, hey, the class check email. The class should be static. The method should be static. The first parameter have these, and after that, the data type that you want to add this method to that class, that's extension method. Now, it's time to talk about the very, very important subject. Deferred execution and immediate execution. That's so important. Let's do that. Now, it's time to talk about the deferred execution and immediate execution. First, deferred execution. Deferred execution means, for example, here I have a list of orders, and here I create a condition. Now, there's a question. Now, the order has established a connection to the, for example, RAM, to the database. No, now there is no connection. There's no established connection to the database or to the RAM, because that's a deferred execution. It means we delay the execution until the real value and the real data is needed. What does it mean? In LINQ, there are some special items. When you use them, it means, hey, I want to immediately execute the LINQ. For example, what does it mean? For example, when I come here and say where, or use take, escape, select, and all of them in the LINQ, it means we are just create the condition, create the order, create or group by the item, but the query is is not executed. Just create some iteration over the loops. But when you use some special item like toList, like single or default, like first or default, like count, in situation like this, we call them immediate. What does it mean? Suppose here I have a list. Now I come here and say, hey, just give me the number that they are higher or greater than 2. And here I come and create a toList. And after that, create a numbers and add the 4 to this list. And here I want to iterate over this list. Now, here's a question. Now, 4 exists in the list or not? If I run the program, you will see that, okay? It say, hey, there is only 3. It say 1, 2, 3. Only 3 is greater than 2. But here we add the 4 to the list. That's the reason that you can understand the defer and immediate execution in this example. If I change the position of this line, I mean the toList, to here, I mean after the add. Now here I create a condition. Now here is defer execution. Okay, because where select, take, escape, they are all of them are items that I told you they cannot execute the query. We call them the item that create deferred execution. And here I add the 4 to this list. Now I have 2 items that has in this list. And here I create query toList. It means I told you toList, single or default, first or default, and all of these like this force the query to execute. We call them immediate execution. That's so important and that's so easy. Here I will tell you all of the item that create deferred execution, and all of the items create immediate execution. The deferred execution, all of the items like where, select, take, skip, and all of them. I will write down in this at the bottom of this video. And the immediate execution are something like toList async, or single or default, count, first or default. This kind of item for the query you have to execute. That's so important. In LINQ we have two items: LINQ to entity and LINQ to object. Okay, a LINQ to entity means when you ask the data is on the RAM, or for example a small application. LINQ to entity means the item that exists in database. LINQ to object means the item that is the LINQ pulling all of them from their RAM. That's so important to know the difference between defer and immediate execution. Now, in the next section, we will talk about the filter and sort operation. Don't forget to like and subscribe the channel. I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.